Hello, everyone. How are you today? My name is Michael Gibson, and I am your host today. We are live. I like doing live stream. I really do. Because when you make a mistake, which I try never to do, but when you do make a mistake, it becomes like a healthy understanding of what happened surrounding that mistake and how to keep it from happening in the future. So if I make any mistakes, go ahead and, of course, type them in the chat. But one of the best things you can do in life is make mistakes. I mean, really, one of the best things a human can do is find mistakes in their lives. Why? Because you don't find your strengths in your triumphs, because they're already there. You've already overcome them. You find your strengths, what happens surrounding that mistake, and your failure, and how to keep it from happening in the future. So if I make any mistakes, okay, of course, type them in the chat. Now the recording is making a mistake. One of the best things you can do in life is make mistakes. I mean, really, one of the best things a human can do is find mistakes in their lives. Why? Okay, got that out of the way. Sometimes you open some of your services and they just keep on talking. That's the thing I don't like. That's a mistake. So now I just found that you cannot have a live window open with Zoom and YouTube at the same time. That's a mistake. So my strength in the future, I'm kind of glad that happened. My strength in the future is not to get nervous, not to panic, go to the additional open screen. Normally, it's open by Zoom, independent of this entire live broadcast. And I now found that that can never happen again because I'll look out for that in the future. Not a bad thing. Now, what I was about to tell you was about your strengths. Normally, you find your strength in your weaknesses. Matter of fact, that's the only place you can find your strengths, because you're going to look down and dig deep into whatever you failed at in life. And you're going to try your level best to make that mistake not occur again and to build upon it and strengthen your resolve towards maintaining that part of your life in a healing process, sort of rewiring the brain. Once you know your mistake, you can do something about it. It's when you don't know your mistakes and the false consensus, or what they call the false consensus effect. When people just wander along in life thinking everybody's in agreement with them and thinking they understand everything that's happening when they don't, and they're truly disconnected from society and they live in their own world. Oftentimes, that's a huge red flag. Either you are an abuser, perhaps a narcissist, uh, a sociopath. Are you perhaps a person who antagonizes others for joy? Maybe you're a victim. Maybe you've been a victim of so much abuse that you've been in that particular mode in order to survive. So you've convinced yourself that everyone is in agreement with you. You know, the guy that goes to a nightclub and he's in the corner dancing all by himself, all alone. And he's having a great time. And he thinks that everybody's having a great time with him, when in fact, they're actually repelled by him and they are kind of standoffish. But he doesn't notice, he doesn't even understand that they're not in agreement with what's going on. And he goes through life thinking that I'll just keep dancing and I'll keep bumping. I think Saturday Night Live did a skit on the three guys or two guys that goes in the club and start dancing with Chris Kattan and Will Ferrell. That's false consensus. And that false consensus lead people through a life where they never really experience life. Most abuse victims will sometimes fall prey to this. And so they living in a world that they had to create in order to survive their abuses or survive their loneliness or what may have you. But anyway, today we have a wonderful person. She's a member at Arrow Abuse Refuge Org, our nonprofit. She just graduated with a degree in psychology. She's an amazing young woman, and she has been instrumental in doing a lot of great work over at Arrow. I'll let her talk about that. I'm going to engage with you guys now and just let you know that she's one of our favorites. So I don't get a chance to work with her much. So this has been exciting because, people come to the nonprofit. I'm not always available, one, but two, they're off doing their thing and I'm off doing mine. And so we don't get a chance to interact. So this is a good interaction for us today, and it'll make up for a lot of lost interaction. So without any further ado, we have Miss, forgive me, Arin Farag. If Arin can come in now, that'd be great. Hi,
Hello,
Arin. How are you today? Good talking
I'm
with
good.
you.
How are you?
I'm doing well. So tell me, what part of the world are you in right now?
I'm in New York,
Oh, one of my favorite cities. Oh my God. What part of New York, if you don't mind, just a
Manhattan.
general. Hmm?
Manhattan.
Manhattan, okay. Lived there for a while, lived in Brooklyn. No Manhattan, very weird. I used to run the bridge every day, that kind of thing. Just having a lot of fun. So tell me, why New York? What's going on in New York?
My dad works here. He works for the UN. So,
Great guy.
yeah.
Just one of the people I need to talk to about it. I remember that. No, yes, but of course, we've been in communication with the United Nations for norm therapy, as well as the World Health Organization. We're trying to get in with them as well for some other things that we're doing. But that's good. So the United, what does your dad do? He's like an ambassador or something?
He works with the ambassador.
Okay, yeah, I work with a lot of ambassadors. I had an ambassador as one of our cohorts, Charles Ray. He was a former ambassador to different countries. He was actually one of our guest speakers a few cohorts for norm therapists ago. He's an old friend of mine. But uh, do you like all the travel? Because I know growing up you had to travel a lot. Okay,
Yeah.
tell us about your travels.
Luckily, after I was born, my parents really didn't travel that much. My sisters got more of the travel experience.
Okay, you have an
Um,
older
I
sister there.
only, yeah, I only moved around from back home Libya to the US
Mhm.
when I was about the age of 2 until I was 11. And then we went back to Libya from the age of 11 until I finished high school. And then after I finished high school, I moved back here and did college. So not that much, but they were
Good
travelers
enough.
before. They lived in Algeria, they lived in Tunisia, they lived in
North
Egypt.
Africa, been to all those
Yeah.
places. Okay, so I've lived in 22 countries in my life, and I've been to over eight. So I'm kind of older, much older than I look, although the grays are coming through. But also sometimes it's completely gray. I just put a little tint on it, keep it dark. Trying to
You're
stay as
good.
young as I possibly can. But tell me, what makes you so passionate about abuse refuge? I'm sorry, abuse refuge org.
I have general interest in the abuse industry. I feel like a lot of, as a psychology major, I feel like a lot of disorders and a lot of like issues that people deal with today have some form of abuse connected to it, whether it be social abuse, cultural abuse, domestic abuse, verbal abuse, even sometimes just someone can say something or do something that will bring on an insecurity to you. And I see that as also a form of abuse because it's the constant of like you're not abusing the person, but now the person's abusing themselves. If you would say something like, "Oh, your nose is too big," or "Oh, why does your like if you're like into a different culture and like, oh, why does your food look like that? Why does it like smell like that?" It's
Mhm.
just little comments that some people sometimes can make, or bigger forms of like physical abuse and also verbal where it's just the person is always going to be like why did that happen to me, there's something wrong with me for that to happen to me.
Mhm.
Even depressive episodes, I also think like depression does have a form of abuse connected to it,
Absolutely.
anxiety as well. It's the constant like self-abuse where people don't really catch it, but they are like negative self-talking to themselves. And if that were another person saying it to you, that would be considered verbal abuse.
Of
That would
course.
be considered harm. So you're saying it to yourself, and it's just that constant cycle of abuse. And we tend to get, as people, we tend to get very comfortable in our abuse. We
Mhm.
tend to get very content. And I feel the only way past it is to go through it, and we never really build the
Address it.
courage to go through it. I feel
Yeah.
like we just like to like settle in and it's fine. Like it'll pass when it will pass, but we don't really work for it to pass. We're very scared of what's after it, of making those bigger decisions, of other things. I feel like it's just something that keeps us comfortable in the moment of like, yeah, this is making me sad. I'm comfortable being sad. And it's like
Mhm.
being better is just such a huge hill or mountain that we see that we just don't want to climb. We just don't want to go through it. But
Endeavor to
the only way
fight.
to go through it is to go past it. So,
You're right. Sometimes we just don't want to fight that fight. But
yeah,
at norm therapy, we teach, and we'll talk a little bit about norm therapy as well.
yeah.
But we teach that the only way to deal with any issue, period, is to confront it head on.
Mhm.
Sometimes in a very abrupt manner, and sometimes in a very long-term, subtle manner. Depends upon the case you're working on. At norm therapy, we categorize three cases of abuse. Of course, our green cases, which are, hey, I left my cat in a tree and I'm stressed out. I need to talk to somebody. And maybe a yellow case is, I just broke up with my girlfriend or maybe my boyfriend, and not mine, of course. And I did all these things, these terrible things, and I need to see and talk to somebody. And then maybe you say in a red case, I want to kill myself. Going to hurt myself. I'm going to hurt my child. I'm going to hurt. I'm going through something that I can't cope with, and it's causing me to be a different person. And that person is not a very nice person to myself or anything else. And you mentioned something that's so important: self-abuse. A lot of people think that child abuse or spousal abuse is the most prevalent abuse in society. Well, it is not. Self-abuse, that negative self-talk, that negative and reflexive pain that we cause upon ourselves when we're in certain circumstances and we measure ourselves so inadequately that we end up hurting ourselves. Or the reverse of that, I'm going to ask you if you've seen this, is when people think they're doing so well and they're doing wonderful, yet they're dying inside and you know it. And you want to help them, they don't even understand or they're incapable of articulating that they're in pain, or they're incapable of saying, I need help, because they don't believe they really need help. Why do you think these kind of cases exist, Arden?
I think people find comfort in distraction when they're going through something. I feel like they look for other things to keep their life busy, to keep it all chaotic, or keep it all like, I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this, and it's just take a moment and self-reflect and just like sit down with what you're going through. But like I said, they find it very hard to go through something, and that's why I really enjoy the approach with norm therapy. That is, the first thing is identification. Identify the issue, identify what the abuse is, where it's coming from,
What?
what's happening there, and then also at the same time looking for the solution, having the solution, and also hand in hand with that, empowering the person, finding empowerment within the solution. So it really has cut to the chase of like how to get through abuse. It really has brought up these are the three important factors that we need to focus on. And then as we go through that, if anything else comes up, we can speak about it then. But um
As a priority.
yeah,
We look at what's
these
in
are
front
the
of us.
priorities. It's empowering and identifying what the issue is and finding power through it. And
Absolutely.
so I feel like it's very important, even if, like you said, someone who's very out there, very like doing well, like they seem like they have everything on track and everything. And then when you come to norm therapy and it's like you are dying inside, and it's like we can identify that. We can see that what it is. We can like it's very obvious that you are, but maybe you're hiding it from other people, but here we're gonna get through it. We're gonna process it.
And there are ways that we get that done. And I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up. I think you're right there. You're extremely astute about care, about abuse care. You're very astute You seem to be extremely focused and knowledgeable about that industry, the abuse care industry. But oftentimes we come across that person who's so happy. You know, that smiley, hey, yeah, 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 what do you want? And I can do that. Don't worry. And I can help you. Let me get you cold. Do you want some coffee? Can I get you some tea? I'm going to make your bed for you. You go ahead and I'll take care of it. Or don't worry. Leave your shoes at the door. I'll clean them for you. Now, there are people out there like that who are extremely happy people who are not being abused and they're not self-abusing either. They just love to serve people. And you can always tell the difference between a person who is a people pleaser and a person who pleases people. And there's a difference, and a difference is pain. The person normally you will see the anguish in their life as well as in their faces on their countenance. You'll feel it oftentimes, but you're unable to articulate it because there's a happy face on top of it. And you're like, what the
Very
heck?
interesting that you brought this up because recently I was in London looking for like a master's program and stuff. And so I visited a friend there.
Mhm.
She's very loved. I mean, like there's times when I FaceTimed her on the street and people have told me, whoa, like her smile is contagious. Like, who is this person? Like she is like amazing. She's very bubbly. She's very funny. She's always in such a good mood. And she's my best friend. We went to school like together since we were in fourth grade. And then one day we were out and then suddenly her mood shifted and changed. And I'm like, I've never really seen the side of her being very like calm and like kind of angry. And so I didn't speak to her. I was like, I'm just gonna let her have her moment. Like, I don't know what's going on. And then I
Mhm.
spoke to her after. I was like, hey, like, is everything okay? And then she was just like, she opened up to me and she was like, I'm really tired of pleasing people. I'm like, what do you mean? I thought it was natural. She's like, yeah, it's natural for the first hour, 2 hours, but then when I'm out for that long, she's like, it's draining. And as soon as my face goes off, everyone's like, what's wrong? Are you okay? Why are you pissed? She's like, I'm not pissed. I'm just tired of being bubbly. And then I was like, wait, like I thought you were just a bubbly person in general. She's like, no, sometimes I just want to sit with a straight face. I just don't feel like pleasing people. And then I'm like, how bad do you fake it? She's like, sometimes when I come home, I would literally cry in my bathroom of how much drained I am from making everyone out so happy because if I'm not happy, everyone's gonna be like, what's wrong with her? She's not smiling anymore. She's not very bubbly. She's not very hyper. I was like, I've never really thought of that. She's like, yeah, you see, I was like, I literally saw you and I thought you were pissed. She's like, no, I'm just drained. I'm just tired of being so bubbly and happy the whole day. Like I just want to chill. I was like, okay.
Identify the hallmark tenets of finding abuse around you. There's a paper I wrote called The Gibson Effect. I want to get it published, and I'm working on that now. But it's about us understanding of self and how you and your best friend will operate your whole life. And because you're so much alike, you forgive those nuanced feelings, those small indifferences, and those personality traits, and you even forgive the big infectious smile, and not look beyond it because you're best friends. And oftentimes, using my paper as a and I coined it this way as a Gibson effect. It's when you don't notice that incongruencies are very, very large in your life. But now that you have this psychology hat on, the psychological psychology hat on, you looking at things from a different prism. And you did something that most people cannot do. You stayed calm and you let her have her moment. You didn't react to her. That's probably one
Yeah.
of the smartest things you could have ever done. And I think you know why, because you don't want to compound a person's problem during these times. But for her to self evaluate in a very precise kind of manner that I'm tired, I'm putting on this show for everybody for so long. And it's normally because of fear of, believe it or not, abandonment that she does this. That lady who gets you the coffee, who irons your shirt, who says, just walk out the door, let me put your tie on for you, and da 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 da. And when you leave, she sits in the kitchen table like this.
Yeah.
Same thing your friend went through. I will tell you, at some part of a life, normally there's an element of abuse. And it could be isolation abuse, it could be familiar abuse or some type of verbal abuse. It could be a controlling entity, a manipulative, narcissistic, or otherwise entity in her life who've been a constant stay, probably on a chronic basis throughout her life. Not necessarily chronic, could be a new boyfriend who's just an ass who treats her poorly. And that is her way to say to the world, not that I need help, but it's her way to say that I'm being abused in more ways than what you're seeing. Normally, when you see a people pleaser and you know they're in pain, you know they're in anguish, or you can feel that that's the case, then there's a way for them to, how shall I say, resolve some of their issues over time. This is not an overnight fix, and at norm therapy, we don't try to fix or repair anyone.
Yeah.
But what we've found over the past 30 years of developing norm therapy and the last 6 or 7 years of implementing norm therapy, and we're getting empirical data and all the independent studies for that done even as we speak, what we have found is that people get better when you take them out of an abusive circumstance. They start to see the other abuses. They can't really articulate them because I've heard people say financial abuse. I didn't even know that was a thing. And they've been
That
victims.
was that was
Exactly.
also me when I was like skimming through the website when I decided to work for Arrow. I was like, political abuse? Like what? Like there's a word for it. There's a word for
Yes.
it, like culture abuse, like a lot of things that it's not like I say that I haven't really like experienced abuse because I connect that to like I'm also very like stereotypical where it's like the stereotype of like what is abuse to me is like,
Yeah.
oh, it's domestic, it's verbal, it's something like directly towards you. But and then when I started working for Arrow, it also inspired one of my papers at school to write about, which is the societal like abuse of younger women and girls, and especially I don't feel like I went through it, but maybe I did, where it's like I don't know if you've ever I remember you said that you lived in Dubai.
Yeah, too. I live in
Yeah.
Dubai.
So like
Mhm.
in like an Arab culture where there are these stereotypes and this specific image of you as a girl that you have to have and that you have to hold. And I feel like I did carry it with me, and it took me a really long time to realize where it's like, no, I don't want to be like that. I
Well,
don't.
because you're an
Because they
adult
mix a lot
now.
of culture with religion. I always say, like, because I'm a Muslim, I always say Islam is not flawed. It's the Muslims that are flawed. It's
Exactly.
the culture that's connected with religion, where it's like, you can't do this, you can't do this. And then when I go and I look it up, and it's like, this has no trace to the religion. This is not traced back to the religion. It's just something that's absolutely made up. And it's like, it's this whole mix
Christianity,
the
Buddhism.
longest time to like stop listening to what people are saying, go back to what you know, and just form your own thoughts. I easily jumped on that wagon of this is a sin,
Well,
this is not, this is right, this is not. You can wear this, you can't wear this, you can act like this, but you can't wear this. And then for once I was like, maybe I should maybe look into this on my own and just see if this is real. And it's like half of the things that I've been in my mind thinking that like I'm a horrible person, I'm going to hell, I'm gonna be like that's it, it's done for me. And then when I go, I'm like, oh, I'm not really a bad person. Like all these things that I've been listening to are actually fake, and it's just cultural. It's the cultural abuse.
it is absolutely that. And every
It's what I've
religion has
learned.
the same problem. Every single religion on the
Yeah,
planet. We also have a course in religious abuse as well in dorm
yeah,
therapy. Not because religion is bad for you that we have it. We have it so you can understand your own religion. It's
yeah,
a very generic block of information that helps people to get in touch with their own religion. And of course, truth is
yeah,
everything. When you
yeah,
understand, like you were saying, the truth about your own religion, You understand the truth between culture, tradition, customs, and mores. And then the truth about it's mind-boggling for some people because most people will find in religion a theme by which to live. I'm a pious and righteous man. I am a loyal servant to God. I am, and then they live that life and they may overlook the reality of where you are in life, in what circumstance you're in, and the people around you are enduring. And oftentimes they superimpose religion on top of real life. And it doesn't always mesh. It doesn't always,
Yeah.
it's not always congruent. It's
Yeah.
sometimes that confrontation that you need to have with yourself and your religion in order to be a better servant of God, be a better Muslim or Christian or
Yeah.
whatever your religious
Religion
beliefs
is, yeah.
are. And that's something that we discuss as well all the time. I'm glad you're bringing up these points because I I need to have you in our next advanced or our basic course in norm therapy because you are an amazing, I call them heads, young head about abuse. One
Yeah.
of the things that I can tell you though, the biggest indicator of an abuse victim, you want to know what it is? Not just their pain, because they all have pain. There's an element of fear and pain in every abuse. We can
Yeah.
just give that for granted. But the biggest thing with any abuse victim that you'll find is the fact that when you see one abuse, there's always another.
Yeah.
So it's always you just like you talked about your girlfriend, and I'm glad you brought these points up, Arin. I mean, just truly amazing that you were so astute to recognize this. Well, you're a psychology grad, so there you go. It's fresh on your mind, so I'm going to give that to you. You were so astute about recognizing and maintaining your composure to give them room to vent, to give them room to express themselves to somebody they trusted, and to give them a chance to get feedback that they
Yeah.
otherwise never get because they bottled it up. And that's why there's people pleasing in the first place.
Yeah.
So, but one of the things that all abuse victims, when you have multiple abuses, you have to know where to start to look. And I know Sigmund Freud and Isaac Asimov and all of these different great, uh, psychologists and psychiatrists and people of the past, the fathers of the industry and all of that. I know they have great points, but when they came up with their theorems and strategies and their practices on the human psyche and other parts of how things operate in the world, it was back in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And they've since built on 1700s, depending upon what country you're from. And they've been building on it since. Of course, I think the mental health community is one of the best communities on the planet. There's only like 5 million licensed therapists in the world, period. You look it up, it'll just say, you're like, wow, that's it. And each one of them may have a docket of so many people under their
Yeah.
stead that they're providing care to or mental health care. But
Yeah.
there's a difference between mental health care and abuse care. And what I found over the years is that oftentimes abuse care is a gateway to mental health care. When a person has been abused, there's a traumatic effect on that individual oftentimes. But it's not always so severe that it requires going to the mental health care field. I've seen people literally get better and stay better once, and it's not a cure, but once you find what you said early on in our conversation, empowerment in your own life, and then you have an organization or a therapy that helps you with that empowerment along the way so you can actually start to extrapolate your future
Yeah.
and your potential pain or abuse, or you can now do something about it yourself. That's what I find the difference between mental health care and abuse care. Because abuse care, we go up to the door of mental health care. I try never to knock on that door unless that person needs it. If somebody is experiencing severe depression or some type of malady or defectiveness, then they need to be referred. And that's what we do. We refer them to, we call it for now the higher power, which is mental health care. We'll refer them there because I don't want us to ever purport to do something that we not license or that we don't do. I think, and we have a consensus at the organization that that's dangerous and it's wrong. And but what we've also been able to do is attract people just like yourself from the psychological or psychology community or the
Yeah.
mental health area. We have psychotherapists, we have medical doctors, we have other very highly regarded people who are geneticists, entrepreneurs, you name it, norm therapists trained right now and have said things like, we're the missing link. We're that communicative opportunity to get into the mind and the hearts of the people with whom we're actually involved because we can self-disclose. Like, I'm a victim of abuse. I mean, yes, I'm a victim of abuse, and everybody in the world knows. But I got beat to a pulp when I was a kid, most times, and that affected me severely. So when I finally was able to leave home, I became all kinds of things. A special forces Green Beret. I could have become a coward and went, oh my God, I don't know what to do and whine
Yeah.
about it all day. But I didn't. I just knew that people took beatings, and that was the end of that conversation, and just get used to it. And
Yeah.
that's how I felt. So when I joined the military, I had an outlet where I can go do this and get paid for it and don't get in trouble. Okay, I can do that. I had an outlet. And the guys I learned from, these guys who've been shot 16, 17 times, and guys who've been on so many combat missions, is not even funny, and teach you anything you want to know about surviving, became my conditioners. They conditioned me to be the man that I am today. Same thing happens with abuse. Exact same thing. Your friend, she's been conditioned to believe that she should perform on such a high level all the time around people, and that big infectious smile is a part of her existence. When it's draining and exhausting, it's debilitating. It causes her to be incapable of really being her true self. I think that is a perfect example in context. And I'm glad and that's why I want to make that big, long preface. In context, child abuse is different from child sex exploitation because the anxiety experienced by, for instance, a child that's being abused by being whippings and denigration and narcissism is different from the anxiety of a child being sexually exploited in context. And I think that's where mental health oftentimes and abuse health greatly differ because you have to put each abuse in context in order to address the abuse. But if just you say you need here's some lithium or here's some this or that,
Yeah.
for your anxiety or whatever it may be, your manic self, if you say that and it's just one or two different or diazepam or whatever they're going to use, uh, normally it's medically induced to get you in a certain state. I think that could be, and we use no medication, by the way, no therapy. And
Yeah.
even when we're licensed, as we're working toward licensure now, and we're working toward accreditation in universities, even as we speak, having everything work in that direction. Even with that, just to spell that out, because I want to make it clear, um, we feel that the patient or the client is better served to simply give them a place where they can be heard and listened to and responded to in context. That's one of the
Yeah.
major tenets of norm therapy: clarity, which bring contextualization to anything you do, assessment, and once you assess that clarity, and then, of course, truth. Out of that will come a truth that we can work from. And that's what we look for in all of our patients' clients. So I'm glad you gave that example of your friend. Do you have any other people around you in your life that may have undergone circumstances that you thought were circumspect or like, wow, set yourself
I
back?
feel like people in my life, especially the fact that all my friends are Libyan. We all
Mhm.
grew up together, went to school together. I feel like we're all very conditioned the same. And some people are still in that, like I said, that bubble of just believing the traditions and culture and it's very hard because even when I try to like bring up like, hey, it's not really like that, by the way, like it doesn't really mean that, by the way, you can think this way, and they're just passive aggressive, like very,
Normally a sign of abuse, a narcissistic abuse, normally.
yeah, and they're just very loud about their opinion, or they'll get really pissed or get really, and I'm just like, hey, we're just having a conversation here. We don't need to like, you don't need to get angry. I'm just pointing out that you could look at things from a different perspective, by the way. You could be seeing that whatever your mom's telling you of, um, like, because there's this person that we know, us, our friends, and most of us, like following me, I've really like been very loud about psychology and mental health and about some things. And so my best friends do actually like believe as I do, and they've like evolved and like been very aware of like their circumstances and things, and they've become more just aware about life in general. And then there's this one person that we all know of where her mom is a narcissist. Like she is a narcissist, and we all know that she's a narcissist. And to the girl, her mom is the most caring and loving and amazing and fabulous, like best mom ever, where it's like your mom literally does not let you eat bread. Like your mom literally does not let you like do this and this and this because she cares about your reputation in our country, and she cares about the way you look, and she cares about getting you married off and things like that. And we try to bring it up to her sometimes of like, that's not right, like for you not to eat or for you to like lie about like your personality or like put up this facade for you to be seen as a woman when you're literally just a 22-year-old girl. Like you need to like really like look at things from a different perspective, and she's very passive with that. Like you cannot bring that up with her because she just gets so defensive,
Do
so
you
defensive.
know, do you know how many people start off at norm therapy with the exact same understanding of life and
Yeah,
passive aggressive, sometimes awfully passive approach to things? And the people around them they see as kind of gods, if you will, or centers of their universe.
yeah,
And especially parents, because parents have a very strong effect, of course, on their children. If you live your whole life with a narcissist, you're going to have narcissistic tendencies.
yeah,
That's
of
just
course.
it. You're going to
Yeah.
respond like a narcissist. You're going to act, but you may not be a narcissist. But if that's all you know, that's all you
That's
know.
all you know. That's what you grew up seeing.
Exactly. So you've been conditioned to that. One of the
Yeah.
things I want you to really do with your whole group one day, and I really want you to tell me how it went. I want you to go on Medium. I don't know if you know about medium.com, but it's a great art place for articles and you'll read some good stuff. I have a paper published there called The Gibson Effect, or you can get it from Kelly, uh, Kelly Dean, who's a global executive
Yeah, yeah,
director at Hero. And the Gibson Effect talks about that a lot, about how friends see each other and really don't see each other. And that those who do see each other are in a constant fight about, or constant confrontation, I would say, about the group's identity, the friend's identity, and their facades. Because there's a lot of people think that their facade that
yeah,
they created is actually their alter ego. But an alter ego is a permanent thing that you create, like you are a great young lady now, and you're a good friend, and you're an ambassador's assistant's daughter, and you've been around the world. That's who you are. That
yeah,
is the basis of who you are. But one day, when you have your psychologist or norm therapist hat on, or both, you say, that's my superhero strength. So I'm going to create an alter ego for that. And that's an
yeah,
extension of yourself to build you into the best version of you and professionally you can be. So that's different from the Arin that goes home and pets her dog or cat
yeah,
and hang out with her friends than it is when you're in the workplace. So people like, I give the analogy of Batman and Robin, or that, no, Batman and Bruce Wayne. You know, Batman is the superhero that fights. That's his alter ego. And of course, Bruce Wayne of Batman, the rich playboy, that's who he really is. I'm just rich, laid back playboy. Now I go out at night and I fight crime. That's the extension of me. So that's the difference. But a facade, the thing about a facade, and I'm glad you brought that up, is that it's temporary. A facade is temporary. It's something you make up to get through some type of ridiculous circumstance or abusive circumstance or psychologically impaired circumstance or a defective circumstance. It's a facade what people create. It's temporary and it's also destructive. Normally, a facade is
And I
destructive.
also believe that the person is aware that it's a facade. I believe that
Exactly.
you're aware. You know that it's a facade.
You can't lie to yourself. The prefrontal
Yeah, you
cortex,
deep down know that you're
the
faking.
amygdala, the threat centers, they all know
Yeah.
you're lying. Every part of
You,
your brain and soul
yeah.
know you're a liar. That's the
Because
number
to me, it
one
makes no
scare.
sense how so many people can tell that this is a facade, but you are completely unaware. You just think that you're playing it well, but like we're humans. We can tell. We've all put up a facade at least once in our lives. Like we can tell.
And so I'll tell you one thing to complement that. See, I love this exchange between us, and you're a smart one. I got to have you in our next cohort. Forget about it. You need to talk to Kelly and Kim and get that done. Kim's for the audience, say Kim Carpenter is the manager of Norm Therapy worldwide. Really amazing lady. Talk to her. But I'll say this to you, very importantly. Um, when people put on all this stuff, these facades, the difference between abuse care and mental health care is in order to infiltrate the ranks of the mental health care specialists in the world and become a part of that community, you must be mentally defective. There
Yeah.
has to be something in a DSM that says you either need treatment or medication for that malady and circumstance. And it's grown from DSM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So every year they're adding thousands and thousands of different conditions. As a matter of fact, I recently heard as well as read articles that says that now the DSM can actually diagnose every single person in the world with something. That's how many things that are out there. Now that's kind of scary because oftentimes what we found with abuse is that once a person is identified of having a problem, as we were just discussing, and they were unable to articulate it before, and now they see within themselves. There's another paper you need to read called Dunning-Kruger. I didn't write that one, but Dunning-Kruger, if you've heard of it, it's about people's self-evaluation or how others evaluate you versus normally the smartest person in the room think they're the smartest person in the room and they're not. And the dumbest person in the room think they're the dumbest person in the room and they're not. Oftentimes it's the exact opposite because we have such bias when we self-evaluate. That's why no attorney should ever represent themselves because we're so biased that we won the case, we may
Yeah.
misrepresent ourselves. If that's why it's saying with doctors to self-diagnose, you need to get another opinion because that will be, especially in the mental health care area, because the brain is what you're actually dealing with in that psyche. So you need always a second opinion. But Dunning-Kruger states that oftentimes the person who really think they're smart, some type of false consensus about yourself, and as a matter of fact, it's called the false consensus effect in your terms, your world, the psychology world. But that particular effect will make people blind and myopic to
Yeah.
what's really wrong with them. And they can never really get help because they're convincing themselves that they don't need it.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem. So read those, have your people read on the Dunning-Kruger effect as well as the Gibson effect. And just read them and it'll help the group have topics. And if they need, of course, norm therapy, send them our way. We'll be more than happy to schedule them on a session, a private session. They can't remain anonymous because of HIPAA regulations. We try to comply with and all that, but they can definitely come to a very safe space and get some type of conversation going. And I'm saying all that, for everybody's benefit. If you find yourself in a crowd of people that you so love and respect, remember, a prophet is never respected in their own home. So when you say, girl, you don't have to do that. You can think of yourself a different way. They know you since you were a kid. They remember you with the pigtails and they remember they have that familiarity. Familiarity breeds contentment, but also it breeds contempt. So they know you. And so why should we regard Arin as our savior here in her psychological, who they don't want to know. They may be a marketing manager. They may be a biologist. They don't want to know about psychology. That's your thing. and it's
That's
intimidating. But go
I
ahead, your
was
question is
um
intimidating.
as I was applying for like a master's degree, one of the questions said, what was the hardest thing about your degree? And so I was writing it next to my friend, and she was like, "Well, say like the exams and say like the stress of COVID and stuff." I was like, "No, that." I said the hardest thing about going into psychology and mental health and learning is actually uncovering how many things I've brushed off over the years that have actually changed me, that are like actually like I've been traumatized. Like I feel like I have been, and
Mhm.
it was such a hard thing going into psychology and continuing, because every single class it's like, wait, I've experienced that. I've felt a part of that. Like I know what this person means. And also my friends always tell me it's going to be so draining being a therapist. Like, you are fit for the job. Like, you're our friend therapist. We love it, blah, blah, blah. Like, how are you going to do it with strangers and stuff? I was like, you don't know what I went through in the past 4 years. I did some self-realization that I don't think I would have gotten to in another 10 years if I hadn't gone into psychology.
Absolutely.
I don't think I would have even brushed the surface of the things that I've experienced if I hadn't gone into psychology and just read, not even what's like being said at school. I would come home and I would be so excited about things and just read articles online. And with every single article, it's like, whoa, yeah, like
Eye-opening. Eye-opening.
eye-opening. That was the hardest part about being in psychology.
That
It's
raw Aaron that you get to look at
that
it
like
every day.
and something about about what you said about our self-concept. My self-concept was I was not willing to accept that on myself, that I've gone through that. I was not willing to be like, oh, I did have a depressive episode because of that. And to me it was just like, no, I wouldn't have a depressive episode. No, that wouldn't affect me. I'm stronger than that. And so it took so long for me to uncover some things. And and the most thing was that I was not accepting it upon myself, because my self-concept of myself was never that. That
That
was all
cognitive
that was
bias.
all deleted.
Exactly.
That didn't mean anything to me. That to me was, I would not talk about it. I would not think about it. And
Well,
it
I'm
brought
sorry,
up,
the cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias are kind of that's
yeah,
one.
yeah, it brought up
It's rampant. It's
so
rampant.
much. It brought up, I remember we had like a group psychology class, and when I kid you not, this class would end every single session with a student in tears, because we were just humans having conversations about childhood, about parents, about friends, about certain things. And most of the things that people were uncovering were forms of abuse. Most of the things that people were talking about were abuse. And I saw that that was when everything got like, that was the scratch that turned into the PTSD, that turned into the depression, that then turned into anxiety, the maltreatment, the misdiagnosis, they're not talking about it, so people just think they're depressed. They're not speaking about it, so people just think they're anxious. They're not. So it's like this thing where we're not accepting it on ourselves. And so we're just not really putting like where the trigger is. And so people don't know that it's abuse. And we're just covering it up as, I'm
I want to
depressed.
have you
Oh,
come on a panel. I'm going to create a panel in our upcoming next month where a bunch of heads, old and young, get together and have a conversation about
yeah.
various forms of abuse, how to approach. I'd like to get your opinion and get you on that. I want you to talk with Kelly and make sure you're on that panel. I could talk to you literally all day on this. You've touched on so many points that most people miss their entire lives. And they wonder
Yeah.
at 40 and 50 years old, how did I miss that? Why did I live in that bubble for so long? Why didn't I break out? And that self-realization that you're getting just by, and you're
That's
not
where the generational trauma comes from, because we're redoing the cycle. Like
cyclical. It's very cyclical. You're
my
right.
parents, two people that grew up in Libya in like the suburbs in the mountains, like literally now when I'm studying psychology and bringing stuff to their attention, they're like, oh, like to us, mental health used to be like, you're crazy. This person is
Exactly.
crazy, but they're like, now we get it. And my mom, for the first time in her whole life, before we used to tell her, your like my grandmother was diagnosed with depression. So we tell her, your mom was diagnosed with depression. you're showing these like tendencies of bipolar depression as well. Like we think you're depressed. And to her, that was the biggest insult you can tell her for years.
Exactly. She
And
doesn't have her
now
faculty and she's raised all of you.
and now she, after I'm like studying and like she's hearing that people are more open now these days about their depression, about anxiety, about abuse, about things like that. And so now when she's hearing other people like coming out and talking about it, she's like, well, maybe I am like a bit depressed. Like maybe I do, maybe depression is real. And I'm like, she's like, maybe, yeah, maybe abuse is real. Like maybe it's not, because honest to God, like my mom used to be that cruel people. If you're getting abused, it's because of you. You
Mhm.
don't get abused for nothing. Like it's probably something that
Exactly.
you've done. She was like that for the longest time. And I remember the biggest arguments of us were happening where like you can't say that. You can't think like that. I was so angry how like you think like that. Like how do you think like that? And
Conditioning.
so
Listen,
yeah.
well, I hate to cut you off. I want to know more. We got 9 minutes left, and
Oh,
there are questions from the audience,
okay.
and I think that we need to answer. And I do apologize, and that's why I know I have to have you back on. You got a couple questions. Now, the first one is, what aha moments have you had about abuse since you've been a part of ARA, Abuse Refuge Org?
I think the aha moment that maybe I had, let me think about this just for 1 minute. Oh, about like the organization in general?
Yeah, just wow, because you had a lot in your life, aha moments, it's
Yeah.
obvious. But while
Yeah.
at Arrow, Abuse Refuge Org, being around people who are norm therapists and thinking the way you do,
I
what
can
kind of
think
like
of
moments
I
you've had?
think one thing that I like did gain experience from and knowledge from where I was like an aha was the cultural diversity project that I worked on when I was going through countries and looking at their abuse, their cultural norms, like their family dynamics, their like the domestic abuse, the health of women, and the economy of the country, and looking at all these different factors, and then seeing when going on the UN page and then them talking about the abuse and the lack of mental like health in that country or in that
Or
region,
abuse care,
and
or abuse
then
care.
abuse care. And I just it makes some sense, and it makes and like it's just like what didn't make sense to me, what didn't make sense to me was the fact that these countries are they're poor, they suffer through poverty, unemployment, like all like obviously a lot of cases of abuse, and it's like this is public knowledge where someone can Google this information, where and then it's like but there is no mental health coverage there at all, like nothing, or abuse care at all. And it's like sexual abuse, and like it's reported cases of like incestual like rape and stuff and things like that, and it's just like what do you mean this information is just for the public and it's out there, and you can see that there are 30,000 cases of domestic abuse a year, and it's like no one has done anything about it.
Okay. Somebody's calling me. I'm not sure
Okay.
why. But it's okay. I got they shut it off, they stopped.
Mhm.
Let me ask you another question, and this is kind of important. Let me see here. Yeah. Tell me that after having gone to these different countries and visited these different people and seeing all of these maladies and all of this crime and all of this going on, that's why norm therapy was born. It was born to talk with people about these problems and get them to start self-healing. We're not here to heal anyone. That's not what we try to do. What we actually try to do all the time is we try to make sure 100% that we give you the tools, and we have plenty of them, to help you get better. Not you per se, but the audience of abuse victims. And we refer to the mental health care community when we, of course, uh, cannot treat someone. So you're looking at it from two different perspectives. One, that you're mentally defective, and the other that you're physically and mentally abused. So we have to stay focused on which one it is and kind of get you in a place, or the patient in a place where they can respond and recover in a way that's conducive to their own lives and their benefits, instead of the way we think they should. See, because in norm therapy, norm means not my norm world. Kelly's normal, but you're normal. What would your normal be like had you not been abused or brought up by a narcissist or put into a school environment where you were bullied? What would your normal be? And so we try to explore that theoretical question that we're still working on as parts of our premise of the base and the empirical data for norm therapy. So that's going to take a while through independent study and a few other things and evaluation. I can talk to you literally all day. I love the way you think. I think you'll make an excellent people person when it comes to therapy. I can't say you'll be an excellent therapist yet because I don't know, because I haven't seen you in that context. But from my professional and personal opinion, I think that you're on the right path. Absolutely. And you listen well, but you also speak in very direct and serious terms. And you try your best to make people understand you and understand, more importantly, themselves. I think that's a hallmark trait of a good therapist. I really do. Or they are hallmark traits of a good therapist. So I'm going to, of course, wish you the best of luck and
Thank
all of
you.
that with that. And stay with Arrow, get the norm therapy training out of the way. And then we'll have another one of these meetings during the interim and after training.
Yeah.
So we can share with the world all about what's going on with you since norm therapy, since graduation, since your master program, and all of that. Is there anything you want to close on so I can close this out here, Arin? Anything at all?
Not really. I feel like we covered a lot this session. I mean, thank you very much for this opportunity. I really enjoyed talking about mental health and abuse care and the differences between. I feel like it's very important and each one, like I said, follows the other. And so this was really fun speaking about it and just saying my opinion on things because I really enjoy also hearing other people's perspectives and especially someone that's more experienced like you. I enjoy hearing what else could be out there and what else I still don't know. I don't know if you can hear that there's thunder outside and it's a
No,
whole
not at all.
storm
This has
right
been a
now.
wonderful, quiet interview.
Okay,
Wonderful.
good. Yeah, so yeah, this was fun. I enjoyed it a lot and I would like to do it again. I mean, I enjoy talking.
Thank you very much, Arin.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell the world, I'm going to read a couple of things here that I always read. Um, Of course, if you've enjoyed and got something out of today's session, please show your support by sharing this video, subscribing to our channel on YouTube, as well as on our website, abuserefuge.org, and of course, liking it. So please go to goarrow.org and normtherapy.com and explore our opportunities and seek help for yourself or someone needing our services. If you're interested in becoming a norm therapist or you're interested in sessions, we just have one box that will, of course, decipher everything from, and that's contact@normtherapy.com, and you'll be sent and referred to the right people to get any kind of help or assistance. We also take donations at abuserefuge.org. At the top right-hand corner of the website, you can donate to what we do. It takes money to keep all of this going. This is a nonprofit, a 501c3 registered with the IRS in the United States. And we are a global organization that look for victims and survivors to help. Since its inception, we've been doing it free of charge. Now, we're starting to charge people through the for-profit company that undergirds the nonprofit and provides services to them free of charge. On the for-profit side, we're seeing a need to start having the nonprofit, forgive me for saying all this, to kind of take care of itself. We're always in need of donations on that side, so we really appreciate it. Anyway, thank you, Arin. It was a great time I've had here today with you, and I look forward to our next session. I had to say all that in one
Thank you
voice.
very much.
Please forgive. I'm gonna start saying it throughout the interview. But we have so many good topics that we're talking. Who wants to stop and have a service announcement?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna figure out a way to incorporate it into the entire interview. But I thank you for your presence today, and I wish you
Thank you
all the
very much.
luck in the world. I think you're an amazing young lady, and I'm glad you are going on the path of helping others, especially discern their lives and situations in which they happen to find themselves. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You have a
Thank you
great
very
day.
much. It's really fun. You too. Thank
I enjoyed
you.
it as well. Say hello to your parents. Bye-bye.
Okay, goodbye.